that was when I first received a very divine message from God Himself. And I knew that things were happening to me that were for my good, even though they were going to absolutely tear my heart apart. I went on, and after my breakup, I was dating guys that were in the industry, super gorgeous. I was dating a rising star in Hollywood. He's still a rising star doing big things. I'm very proud of him. We obviously don't talk anymore, but doesn't mean I'm not proud. What was happening during this time, I was also, things were hitting for me in the industry. I was getting, starting to have some success or bigger successes than I had. And I was really disappointed with the betrayals that were going on left and right with my girlfriends and in relationships. Now, I will say this. I had friends that I loved with my whole heart. I'm someone who, if you're my best friend, I love you with my whole heart. I support you. And the things that I was seeing from them were so heartbreaking. They weren't happy for me. They didn't want me to end up with, you know, these guys. They were trying to catch the eye of the guys that I was with. And that to me is a deal breaker. I don't tolerate that kind of behavior. That is at this point a flaw in your character. This isn't a mistake where you can talk it out. You have something in you that needs to be fixed. And unfortunately, there are more insecure girls in this world than secure girls. I have never been able to fathom that. I could never do that to a girlfriend in my life. So these betrayals were so hard. I felt like I was in the twilight zone for a lot of these situations. And I was just really grateful that God saw everything. But I had betrayals in my relationships as well. They were pushing me back to church. Like I also needed protection from something, and I felt I had to physically like run back into a church. I didn't know what else to do. That's what led me back into the church. And I stumbled into St. Paul's in Westwood down the street from me, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It says, "The eyes of the Lord are everywhere, keeping watch on the wicked and the good. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Those are some of my favorite Bible verses. I just felt like God saw everything, because some girls, they will gaslight you, guys too. Words don't mean anything with me, and Jesus and God can see through your heart. Sometimes people can too. That's kind of a gift I've always felt. So you can say one thing in your actions, but when I can see what's really deep inside of your heart, that's hard, and that needs to be changed and transformed, and people need to work on themselves more. I have that kind of stuff is not acceptable in my life, but I just felt so blessed um, that God saw it. So I'm going to talk about a very pivotal moment. I had a trip that I was on. Okay, I'm not going to say where it was. Probably looked like a blast on social media, but it was one of the craziest times in my life. I was feeling a lot of energies with darkness, having some experiences with the demonic, to be completely honest. Look, I am half nun, half party girl. That sums me up. Like, I will always have that party girl gene in me. But I had friends that were constantly on drugs, and my heart goes out to them, because let me tell you, I loved these girls with my whole heart. So I'm just sending love to you. But I will say, you cannot be in the right spirit. You cannot be in the right mind when you are on these substances, even just drinking too much, which is something I am very familiar with and have made the mistake of many times in my life. I didn't know this, and it's a very interesting fact. If you are not filled with the Spirit of God, you are filled with the other spirit. Okay. Hopefully, hopefully, you guys can hear my voice at this point. I think that's like a very crazy revelation. I didn't know that. I also didn't know we were like constantly filled with something. Yes, you are a vessel, and you just pretend there's, a mist or a spirit that can come over you. And if you're not with God, you're with the other one. I was on this trip, and I was on the top floor of this hotel. It was like we were getting dinner, the sun was setting. It was really beautiful, this place. And we're just at this, the glass windows are surrounding the top floor, and something's happening, and there's a really cruel situation going on. And I wanted to cry, I wanted to scream inside. I was so panicked. I was just like, how do I get away from this situation? How do I get out of this toxicity? And I kid you not, I saw this cross lit up. I have chills. You can't see my peach fuzz through this shirt. I saw this cross lit up in the distance, and I heard God. And it wasn't a voice, but I heard him say, I am going to rescue you. And I've never had, I shouldn't say that. I've had these moments. This was one of the most vital moments of my life. It was just so loud and crystal clear. And so I want to tell you guys, if you're going through something and you can't fathom how to get out of it, whatever the situation is, it's not your job to figure out the how. It is your job to go to Jesus and God, and He will orchestrate the events of your life to lift you out of that situation. It was so unbelievable what He did. And I'm not going to go into details, but He raised me up. He took me out and took me to new levels. And I really felt like a phoenix rising from the ashes during this time in my life. I was in a film, Cartes Para Excel, and it was getting a lot of success. And one of our first beautiful, magical festivals was at Phoenix. And I just knew that this was from God and that it was speaking volumes to what was going on. I was like, I'm a phoenix and I am rising, and I couldn't believe what was happening. It was also interesting because I had had a really bad night, I think, crying and praying with my mom on the phone, and we were praying so hard together. And the next day, like in Phoenix, I got this text about the Real Love Boat, and I was just in a place where I was like in pain. I wanted love again so badly. And I think what's so cool is, again, God is the one that knows your heart. I didn't go looking for this show. It came from the heavens. And so I trusted in it. And I knew something was different about this one. Previously, I had been on hold for one for 6 to 7 months, which was crazy. I was on hold in the dark. And this is how things go in the industry. Sometimes you hear back, sometimes you're told you didn't make it, sometimes you're just left hanging and they've moved on. It was so soul crushing, and I was in such a dark place because I had, you know, thought that I was going to be on this show. Didn't get it. 1 month later, that's when I got the text for the Real Love Boat. And my mom even said, she said, I think God is answering your prayers, because it was so out of the blue. And I hadn't even been pursuing shows. I think like when I was younger, I was such a I mean, I've worked so hard in acting to hone my craft. Like, I was training like no other ever since I've been young, but especially out of school. And my best friend at the time, Jamie Hilfiger, who's Tommy Hilfiger's niece, she was offered a reality show, and so she pulled me in to be in the cast. And I was like, "Girl, I can't do this. I'm an actor. Like, I'm a serious actor, okay? This would be embarrassing." Because that was like when reality shows were. They weren't like, the path any serious actor went on back in the day. So I go to the meeting and it was hysterical. Like the network was like, I was like, I'm just here for supporting her. Like, I'm just here for support. And they're like, why did you bring her then? Like, what is going on? And she kept being like, no, she's in the cast. Like she's gonna do it. And I literally was like, I can't do it. I can't do it, but I'm happy for her. So anyway, I ended up seeing other people getting opportunities after a while of working my ass off in that industry. I was like, well, great, maybe I'll just give this thing a shot. And I started applying to shows, and I got to the end of about 8, I would say 8 or 9 reality shows over the course of 10 years. And each one shattered me at the end. It was just like I couldn't get one to save my life. So when I stopped trying and this one came through, I was like, okay, something's a little different with this. During this time, I was breaking away from friends that just weren't good energy and filled with the Spirit of God. And He just kept blessing me and raising me up. Now, what I will say is, that I've learned is before any big breakthrough, you will most likely be going through some big spiritual warfare. So I didn't understand that at the time because this is one of my biggest breakthroughs, I think. And it was more than a reality show. Like my chains were being broken. And I was leaving my company that I was at for 10 years. And I didn't really understand, but I wasn't under the protection of God. That's why I kept going back. And there were 2 years that during the pandemic, I didn't go in person to the Easter Mass. And that's where you renounce the devil. I think that's a very important Mass. And I had missed it. And I watched like the wrong energies come into my life the years that I missed that Mass. So I'm just saying there's some real protection. And this real love boat was like coinciding, like I'm going back to the Holy Mass, I'm receiving the Eucharist. Crazy things were happening, okay, people? Crazy things that nobody would believe, like out of a Harry Potter movie. And I was going through my version of actual hell, to be completely honest. It was the worst 3 months of my life leading up to going onto this show. And I remember going, how is this happening when I'm receiving the biggest miracle in my life? I didn't sleep for about 3 months. I didn't sleep until I got off the show. Something comes out of the sky, I just trust it. So I kept going with it. I had loved everyone in my company so much. They were like family to me, but things were going on that I didn't even understand at the end. It was absolutely heartbreaking. The spiritual warfare was just so high. At this point, like my heart was so vulnerable. It was just like felt like it was failing. And I felt like I was unable to continue at a job that I felt like I could no longer be at. It was never my identity, but I really felt at that point like I just had a mission to do other things. And it was always the means to my end. And it was the most beautiful one I could have ever imagined. One that was only, again, curated for Brooke. I was a personal attendant to the CEO of this private equity company. And he owns, he was the owner of an NBA team. And it was like the most unique job you could ever ask for. So I was so blessed. I was so grateful for what it did for me in my life. And the people I met were incredible. But the ending was like kind of a heartbreaking one for me. What's weird is it happened like during Juneteenth. And I remember going, this is so metaphorical. Like my chains are being broken free. I definitely felt, I'd slaved away serving others for so long. And I was feeling God like freeing me from that. Did the rosary throughout this time. I have PTSD. All right. Hopefully this mic's still working. I did the rosary every day. And I'm going to tell you what the power of the rosary is that it feels that if something is written in the stars for you, no evil can touch it. I'd gotten to the end of so many reality shows and I did not ever get it. This one I could feel was going to be different. Like I could feel that no matter what, nothing was going to stop it. And so I just encourage everyone to dive deep into the rosary. I'll talk more about the rosary in general, but I have such a love for it. It's unbelievable. So many graces and blessings and miracles come from doing the rosary. So just know that was a big part of my process getting on the show. I leaned on prayer more than I ever have. It was just much more than just like a show about love. Like this was very deep for me. And even though the show didn't take off, success of getting just felt so huge to me. It was the most special feeling because no one knows how much goes into it, especially when this was not the first one for me. I don't let the world tell me what success is, which is really cool. I've never let the world tell me who I am either. I know who I am through the eyes of God. And I'm still in the industry. I still have this love for acting that will never die. But I don't let people who are not filled with the Spirit of God tell me what I am, because to certain people, they might go, oh, you don't have, blockbuster credits. You don't have, whatever. But I know that everything, even the smallest things, are huge and they can be amazing and mean so much to you. Don't let other people tell you what your successes are in this life. If you are homeless and you smile at someone that day and you say something beautiful to them and you bless them, that is huge. That could be winning merits in heaven for you with God. Like, you don't need to have the most success in this earthly world to get into the gates of heaven, everybody. So I've always been really strong about that. And even though my show didn't hit high levels of fame, um, just to prove it to myself that I could do it, like, really meant something about that. I had my own web series during the pandemic called Obviously Not LinkedIn. And I'm just like, I'm a free spirit, never going to be on LinkedIn. I'm not the corporate type. But when you learn about God's truth, you become free from societal expectations and standards. And that's what I've always been about. And God brought me even more freedom than I could have ever imagined. That's why I just like have to tell you guys what God does. Like, he breaks your chains, he gets you to be everlasting. And that freedom is what I think everyone yearns for with the lottery, you know? And that's what I'm trying to say, that the path of God and everlasting life is greater than any lottery win that you could ever win. When you learn these truths, you start focusing on what will get your ticket into heaven. And that's what freedom led me to focus on the things of heaven and not of earth. You know, one of my favorite Bible verses is set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. So I went on the show, and spoiler alert, I was the first to go, the first of the females at least. And it was kind of wild because I had just won our first challenge, climbing the Rock of Gibraltar. Okay? Not an easy challenge. And let me just tell you, the show has to make a race look exciting, right? Brett and I were number one. Let's just say that. And it was the hand of God. It was so blessed. Holy Spirit was running through us. And that was a huge accomplishment as well. I owe it all to God and Jesus. It was also the hand of God for me to be kicked off first. I think, like, not only did I think I was going to meet the love of my life, I just had like all these signs, and I'm all about signs. I just like I also was so heartbroken when I was leaving because I knew I had let down my family and my mom, most of all my mom, because I feel like she's been there for me, supported me, was so ecstatic that I finally had this breakthrough. Like, that pierced my heart. That pierces my heart to this day still. It was a weird time when the show was coming out because everyone around me was like so hyped for the show, but I knew I was the first to go, but I signed an NDA. Like, I can't talk about this. I can't tell people. So it was like very strange for me. So when it aired, this is what I'm going to say. Okay, cool. The energy was really nutty. People around me, whether they were close friends or acquaintances, just were acting totally bizarre. So much so that I feel like I went into a hole after this show. I never really came out of that hole. I literally felt like I couldn't. And even years later, if I got close to anybody, it was just very strange energy. And you hear about that all the time in the industry, especially with people with high levels of fame. My show didn't take off, but on a lower level, I feel like I experienced um, a very traumatizing situation. I just had people's true colors come out. People were acting wacky around me, competitive behaviors. Just, it was very hard to be around people. I thought others, you know, I'm somebody who I have always been like the most supportive friend. I lift my friends up. I shine light on them. I'm at their movie premieres cheering them on. I was happy when I was serving others and my friends were making six figures straight out of college. I never had a jealous, like, bone in my body ever. That's just me, though. And so it was really hard for me when it was painful. You know, I had best friends telling me they didn't watch the show. That was like an arrow to my heart.